Welcome to episode 10 of Amateur Hour CX, a podcast on the state of cycling from our point of view in the grassroots ranks, or pretty much whatever strikes Eric's fancy based on who he could trick to come on the show today. We're brought to you by Rift. Keep listening to hear more about a special offer from the Helderbergs of New York. I'm Mark Walling, and here's your host, Eric Schillinger.
Here we are, Amateur Hour CX, and we have two guests today. We have Tommy Servetas and Dan Servetas. Hi guys, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Hey.
I thought we could maybe talk a little bit about the experience that, Tommy, you have as a racer. You're a junior racer, right? You're still a junior?
Yep, still a junior.
What's your racing age?
I'm racing age 17, so 2 more years left.
What's your real age?
I'm 15, and in a couple of days I'll be 16.
So, Tommy, you're just racing bicycles now, right? Like you were a high school student, right? You go to high school.
Yeah, but I used to play lacrosse with the school, and I used to play lacrosse outside of school with the travel team. But I don't know. I feel like when you get older in cycling, like you need to make it like your number one commitment if you want to like perform well. So I scaled back on lacrosse. I don't play travel anymore, but I'm on the fence on whether or not I'll play next year. School lacrosse, I'm probably won't play, so I can focus on maybe a mountain bike season or just more training. But I mean, it's fun to hang out with kids at school, but I like this more, so I choose this.
So lacrosse in high school is a spring sport, right?
Yep, yeah, spring. So
you could theoretically race cross and also play lacrosse, but that's probably kind of a funny combination of terms.
Yeah.
But you're thinking that at this point, it's just even racing is too demanding. It requires your full attention. That's basically what you're saying, right?
Yeah, it's hard to, especially like when I'm trying to train and like focus my training for a good build up and base miles. Lacrosse just gets in the way with it a lot of times, but it used to be like fun for both, but if I want to take one seriously, I have to just focus on bike racing.
I know right where you're coming from. When I was in high school, I played basketball and ran track. And there were years where I was playing on the high school team, playing on like an AAU travel team, and running track, so that I was doing all of those things all at once. And I got to the point where I couldn't actually, and I like track the best, right? And I got to the point where I couldn't do those things. So what do you think? I stopped playing basketball. I just ran track. But I didn't stop doing a school sport. Do you ever think about, I mean, I imagine you have friends at school, right? Yeah,
definitely. I have friends at school. It's just, like, that's the hard decision. Like, I like hanging out with my friends after school. Like, that's the main reason I play lacrosse. I used to like lacrosse more, but now I just do it because it's an opportunity to hang out with my friends after school and kind of like bond together. But I don't know, it'll be a hard decision. I'm not sure whether or not I'll cut lacrosse out, but it's a hard decision. So I don't want to really get rid of like my only school sport. It'd be nice if I had another one, but I mean, bike racing is pretty much like, if you want to perform at a higher level, it's almost like an all year round thing. So it'll be a hard decision.
We sort of skipped ahead in the story because we're talking about sports that you might give up the focus on cycling. How did you get exposed to the idea of bike racing to begin with?
Well, that would be my dad. Yeah, I remember probably when I was about 5 years old, just my dad was racing for CBRC, doing the Trooper Brinkerhoff races, the Bat and Kill. And I don't know, I kind of did like kid races when I was like 2, 3, 4. Especially there was a little circuit race for kids in Troy that I did. I remember that one. And it kind of just like escalated. I had a bike that I rode around up and down the street every day. And I guess when I came to the age where I could race, I did.
So for you, it's just something you've always been exposed to. Your dad was racing and you thought that was cool and you were interested in it.
Yeah, I've always been interested in bikes and riding them.
Do you remember the first, so you race cyclocross primarily. I know you've been doing some criterium racing and stuff this spring, right?
Yeah, I did a couple criteriums this spring, and I've done a couple road races as well, a little bit of mountain biking.
So of those, do you remember what you first started? What was the first race you did? Do you remember the first race you did?
Yeah, the first race I did was Kirkland. The first year that was my first race. I don't remember what year it was. I think it was 6 or 7 years ago. And that race, I had like a bike that I got from the Whites, and it was a red line with 24-inch wheels. It wasn't like, you wouldn't call it a race bike, but to me it was like super cool because it had drop bars, like STI shifters. It was like just like what the guys in like the Tour de France were riding. That's what it seemed like to me. And so I raced that, and I just remember it was like super cool, getting muddy and racing with my dad, and like the atmosphere was super cool.
Yeah, that was 2012. You did all of the NYCROSS races plus Power Cross.
Mark, are you on crossresults.com?
Absolutely.
Ooh, that brings me to a thought that I had. Do you guys have any idea who beats who in head-to-head cross results competition in your family? And your sister's on there too, right? Your sister's racing too. Where's she? How come she's not on the podcast?
We could get her. We could get Heidi too, and you could talk to Heidi about, being the loudest fan at a cyclocross race.
Okay, go get them.
Oh,
So
what
Dan,
race was I listening to on TV and I could hear Heidi?
I don't know.
Was
I
it a
don't know the answer to
Nationals
that.
live stream?
Oh yeah, you could. You're right. Do you know that, Dan? You could hear your wife on the Nationals live stream in Hartford.
I think, yeah, you definitely can.
Oh, now we have our special guest cameo appearance from Victoria Servetas. Hi, Victoria.
Hi.
Hi, welcome to being on our podcast. Did you know you were going to be on a podcast tonight?
I did not.
Well, you are. You are a bicycle racer, right?
Yes.
And your dad is sitting there next to you. He's a bicycle racer too.
Well, fam.
And your brother. Do you think your brother's a dweeb?
Well, he shaved his legs today for the first time. So I don't know if that makes him a dweeb anymore, but probably.
Interesting. What do you have to say about that, Tommy? This is a monumental occasion. This is the first time that you shaved your legs as a bicycle racer.
Yep, yeah.
How do you think that's going to fly at lacrosse practice tomorrow?
I don't know. I mean, I could just say I'm from Europe.
now, just to be clear, these people on this lacrosse team, they have met you. They do know that you live in Colony, right?
No, I mean, the lacrosse kids are not the brightest, so. I mean,
Oh, snap! We're bringing out the big guns. So the two of you both do bike racing, and Victoria, you did like a season of you're in college now, right? Why don't you tell our listeners where you go to college?
I go to University of Minnesota, and then I was on the cycling team out there, and then I raced cross out there in the fall too for NYCROSS.
Okay, their cycling team doesn't really have a cross team. They have like a road team. How does that work?
Yeah, there was a couple of the kids that I went to the races to with like Jingle Cross and everything. And some of them wore like the Minnesota kit and everything, but there's no like established team for that. But then in the spring, we went to like 6 races that were part of like USAC and everything for collegiate. And that was like a team thing.
So we have here on the East Coast, we have the Eastern Collegiate Cycling Conference. I don't know what like the Midwestern version of that is called. What's the name of it?
I think it's like the NCCC, like the North Central
yeah.
Collegiate one. Yeah.
So collegiate racing, I did some of that a time in the past that now seems like prehistoric. It has a little bit of a different flavor to it than going to a traditional USA cycling event. That's what I thought. Is that something that you've perceived?
Yeah, definitely. There were kids that either took it like really seriously or kind of just showed up, and it was all like kids and everything. So some of the races we went down to Arkansas, which is like pretty far from Minnesota, and we saw like Sammy Reynolds from Squid, and she was racing for Lindenwood, and so like the Lindenwood bus would pull up, and they're all professional, and then we had like our little team bus, and like nowhere the size of the Lindenwood one, and then there'd be like little stragglers who would show up, and you could tell that this is their first time running a bike. So it was kind of just a bunch of different people like getting together, I guess. a lot less serious, I guess, but then also road racing is a lot more serious than cross, so it's kind of weird.
So it's a weird juxtaposition, right? Because you kind of have the it's sort of like this traveling road show of not that serious college racers, but road racing is like can be as serious as a heart attack, you know. So it's a weird mix. How did you like that? Do you have a fun time with that?
Yeah, I like the team. I'm not sure how I really feel about road racing yet. I'm still kind of undecided because you have like the road racers who, if they see like a piece of dirt, they like have to like avoid the whole road type of thing. Or there's the people who kind of also do everything, so you can like hang out with them and like do some gravel grinding. But road races are like a lot different for boys and girls too. So like the boys would be like really racing, and then I think for the girls it was a lot more like a group ride, and then whoever like last 10 minutes could like put out the pain.
Really?
Like, pull out, yeah.
That's an interesting perception. I've never heard somebody say that before, and it's not to challenge your idea. It's just merely that I don't think I've had anybody say that. So why don't you perceive the women we're talking about the collegiate racing, we're talking about these North Central Cycling Conference races, you don't think the women are like racing hard? You think they basically go out and chill and then just throw down in the last 10K or something?
Well, I don't know. It's just like there's not as many women, so you kind of don't. I don't know. It was like weird. Like you didn't want to like break away too soon. So like I don't know if it was just like me, but I kind of felt like the beginning was kind of just like you're chilling out and you just want to like have somebody else pull you, and then like all right, well I'm kind of bored now. Like maybe I should do something. But like, definitely, like I had to start off as like a woman C and then like move up my categories. So like I haven't done like any A races yet, which is like what the girls from Squid does and everything. So I'm sure like that'll be way different. But it's definitely a weird vibe at a road race, especially because I've never done like a road race before, so it was kind of weird.
So you've got three categories basically. You got C, B, A. You started out racing C, and then by the end of the season, were you racing B or were you still racing C's?
Yeah, I moved up to B as soon as like I could, and then I should be like for next season. I think I have to do like one more race to become like an A, because you have like a crit and then the road race, and then some of them had like time trials, so you get like a bunch of points like that, and then you move up.
I see. I'm going to change gears. Before Tommy went and got you, we were talking about your experience in sort of deciding to be bike racers. Tommy was talking about the fact that he has to decide, he feels, if he can keep racing and also playing lacrosse, or if he has to focus on one sport. And he says he'd pick bike racing if he was going to focus on one sport, which of course we approve. Did you have a similar sensation when you started racing, or do you think that, I mean, so I should ask you, in high school, what were you doing? I know you were racing bikes because you were on our junior team, but what else were you doing when you were in high school?
I was also on the lacrosse team, and then I used to play volleyball, but I actually stopped playing that so I could do cyclocross in the fall. I think you definitely have to choose, because like high school sports, you just like show up to practice and like you put out like you go to practice and you train, but then like for cycling you really got to like do that on your own. And it's kind of like hard to do both because like your friends might not like understand. Like a lot of people don't really like race bikes unless like you got like the 5 friends that are on NYCROSS and everything. But yeah, I think you definitely have to pick, because there's a lot of things that like wouldn't even like help, like playing lacrosse maybe like help me like a little bit in cycling, but like I feel like if you're like a cyclist, like that can translate into other things, I guess.
You have fitness. Obviously, you have general fitness if you're racing bikes. Do you think the amount of fitness you need to race is higher, lower, or the same as like playing a season of lacrosse?
I think it's definitely higher, because you go to like, sometimes I go to like spin classes with my friends, and like they play lacrosse with me, and like I think that we were all like the same level of fitness at lacrosse, and like compared to like what I'm doing when I'm training for like cycling, it's like nothing. And then like you look over, they're like dying. I think it's just because it's like a different type. Like for like school sports and everything, you have a lot of breaks, and you're never really like in the pain zone. Like I don't know, like there's maybe like for like a sprint or two, but then like for cycling, like for cyclocross, like you're dying for like 45 minutes. And I don't think a lot of people really want to do that.
That's true. Why do you guys want to do that? Tommy, why do you want to die for 45 minutes instead of just being like a chill lax bro?
I mean, being a lax bro is pretty fun, but I don't know. There's just something about like that first race when like I describe it as like before the race, you're like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do it. Like it's too early. I'm too nervous. And then like if you've ever like called off a race, like right after like you would have started or finished, you're like, why did I not do that? Like it'd already be over. I don't know. It's like sort of like mental goals. Like, wow, I just beat somebody I haven't beat ever, or I just bunny hop something that I've never bunny hopped before. Just like, wow, I didn't realize I could go through that much pain and feel this good after. It's sort of like an addiction.
I have said that a couple times lately that there's a tendency to it that is almost like an addictive tendency, but it's obviously it's like a positive, it's a healthy thing. Do you have a hard time with your friends in school? And Victoria, you can maybe answer this question too, because you've got, I imagine, friends in college who don't race bikes.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me ask Tommy a question first, then I'm going to ask Victoria a similar question. Do you have friends in school, Tommy, who basically just think that you're Looney Tunes, like they don't get it at all? Or do people think that it's cool, or are they just oblivious? Do they have no idea what you're doing?
It's sort of like, wow, that kid shaves his legs. What's up with that?
Wait, but today was the first day that you did that, right?
Yeah, but I imagine the first day of school, it'll be those thoughts. I mean, I'm not that public about it. Like, I mean, when I was younger, it was like cooler because I was like, guys, I just want to race. And they're like, whoa, I never want to race. That sounds cool. But I mean, like, as kids get older, like, I mean, not everybody like publicizes their business. So, I mean, it's sort of like low key. There's no one that's like, wow, you're a loser, you race bikes. Or there's no one that like praises you for it. It's kind of just like kids do their own thing. But I mean, it's definitely like an odd thing. No one, I mean, there's barely anybody in our area that, like, as a junior that races, and if they do, they're on NYCROSS, so.
So you know all the other junior racers?
Yeah, like, there's not that many.
Do you think that you're, just take your buddies from the lacrosse team? Do you think they have any idea let's take Gloucester, for example. Do you think they have any idea what that looks like when you go out and race Gloucester with, 100 other dudes and everybody's a maniac? Or do you think they are like picturing a bike race and they don't even know what to picture?
Whenever my friends ask me about bike racing, they always bring up Lance Armstrong. So that's what they think it is. Just skinny tires, weird looking handlebars, tight clothing that looks funny, weird helmets, and just pretty much looking like a goob.
Wait a minute. Which parts of that don't apply to cyclocross?
Well, to them, we look like goobs, but to us, we just look cool.
Well, you look cool. I think I look like a goob. Victoria, you when you're in college in Minnesota, do you live in a dorm room?
Yeah, I would like keep my bike sometimes in the room, or I'd be like walking out of the dorms with like my helmet and stuff, and you definitely get some weird looks. I lived in like the Healthy Lives hall, so I thought like, oh, they're probably gonna be a little bit less judgmental if I'm like walking around in these weird shoes. But people are definitely like, they like ask you about it, and they're like, oh my god, like you race bikes, like that's the coolest thing ever. And they like, for like a second, but then probably the second time they see you, they're like, oh my god, like she wasn't kidding. But I like make sure to I like look up the coolest videos ever of cyclocross, and then I show everybody, and it all this crazy stuff that I probably can't even do. I'm like, yeah, this is what I do, because like they're never gonna show up and see that I can't like clear an entire tree or something.
So you're curating sort of like a selection of YouTube videos that are the coolest YouTube videos you can find, and then you show people those videos and then claim that's what you're doing on the weekend when you're gone.
Basically, yeah.
That's really brilliant.
And then I brought a couple of my friends to the NYCROSS races, and they thought it was like really cool because I don't think they realized what it was. Because you tell them you race cyclocross, and it's just easier sometimes to say mountain biking, because who knows what cyclocross is. And I think they think that sometimes I'm just like a downhill mountain biker. And then they show me like, oh, this is actually like way different.
Tommy, do you have people who think you're a downhill mountain biker at school?
The school one, I told them like road, and they just thought it was kind of cool because I had the Minnesota kit. Like we weren't like D1 athletes or anything, but I like explained to them how like, yeah, like you like move your way up, and like you can go to nationals and stuff, and then once you throw that in, they think it's kind of cool.
Then people think you're legit.
Yeah. But I would train occasionally in my dorm room. Like I'm a trainer, and I don't know if I would recommend that to anybody if they want to keep their roommate happy.
So your roommate is not a bike. Your roommate's not a bike rider.
No, I brought her to like some of the races, or just like trying to show her what it was about. So like she didn't think I was like making this whole thing up, you know, because I would just leave for a couple hours and then like ask her to let me back in and everything. But then once I started training in the room when I got like 0 degrees and everything, I only did that like a couple times, but it was definitely like a weird thing because I don't think they thought that I was actually going to do that much. Like I think they thought when I went on the trainer, I'm kind of just like spinning around. And then once I started like dripping all over the room, I think that's real.
I don't even know what to say.
And then you have to put your music loud enough that you can't hear your own thoughts in your head, so then the whole hallway can hear it.
So now you are the crazy biker girl of the healthy living dorm.
Yeah.
Is that what it boils down to?
Yeah, but there were weirder girls there, because a bunch of weirdos at college. But I was definitely the weird bike girl.
Now, I mean, I think that's a being the weird bike girl is a good thing to aspire to if you're in our company. Tommy's going to be the weird bike boy, right? That's what it's boiling down to at this point. No more lacrosse, shaved legs. So when you guys are in school, is that like do you eat lunch together and hang out and talk about cool bike racing stuff, or do you like avoid each other and pretend you don't know each other?
No, we definitely don't avoid each other. I don't know. I feel like when you're at school, it's more like he has his like friend group, I have my friend group, and I mean, I don't like go out of my way to talk about like the newest bike stuff. I mean, you could, but I choose to just, I'm not that like, I don't like to talk that much in school, so I kind of just, I'll like acknowledge him, and I mean, when we walk in the hallway, if we're walking to the same place, I'll walk with him and talk about stuff, see if he's going to the races, how he did, how he feels, but I don't really like talk about like bike tech and stuff like that at school.
I see. You're keeping it a secret little bicycle universe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amateur Hour CX is brought to you by Rift. Find oddities and gear for you and your bike, designed in the Helderbergs of New York, serving the seasonal road riders, the scrub zone, and the general public. Get 10% off your order at rift.bike using coupon code AHCX10. That's RIFT.BIKE with coupon code AHCX and the number 10. We thank them for their support.
Dan, so you have 2 kids who are very enthusiastic about bicycles. Did you think that this would happen? Did you hope it would happen? Or did you force them to do this and crack the whip?
I would say with Tommy, I never forced or had to crack the whip. He got on a bike as soon as possible, and he's been riding ever since. With Victoria,
see Victoria smiling in the background.
She had a bike early on, and she learned how to ride pretty early, and then
Tommy crashed into me and made me fall into a basketball hoop, and then I stopped riding my bike.
So that's why Victoria...
Wait. Let's get Victoria first. You explain what happened. Tommy, don't say anything.
We were riding on the street. We used to like ride around our neighborhood and think we were cool and stuff.
At what age, like what year is this, or what age are you? This is like last year? I'm imagining it's last year.
This was like we were like 8.
No, I was probably, she may have been 8, I was probably 5.
Yeah, but we would like ride around, and we used to be like, I remember this, Tommy says he doesn't. We'd be like, oh, let's ride to a party in Australia. And then we would ride our bikes on the street like 50 times. And then Tommy ran into me, and I crashed, and like I fell off my bike into this basketball hoop. And
I mean, if anything, that just tells me that basketball is dangerous.
True.
So, okay. So basically, Victoria, your summary is you're riding bikes up and down the street 50 times, and then Tommy just drives straight into you, and then that causes you to fall into a basketball hoop.
Yep.
Okay, Tommy. Now, Victoria, quiet. Why don't you tell us what happened?
I don't really remember. I just remember.
Oh, that's not a good way to lead. So, in other words, you just crashed your bike straight into your sister and knocked her into a basketball hoop.
I mean, I probably thought it was cool, like you were driving monster trucks or something, and I was like, oh, bike tires are pretty bumpy, so I'll just bump into her tire, and then she fell, threw a fit, and that was probably the last time she rode a bike until a couple of years ago.
Yeah, probably.
So okay, basketball hoops aside, you didn't ride for a while, and then something switched in your brain, and you thought to yourself, I probably can avoid the basketball hoop if I don't ride with Tommy. I want to try this. Or did like Dan come in your room one day and say, okay, get on his bike? Here's
what happened. Victoria turned 16, and I got her a bike for her birthday.
Well, that's messed up. You're supposed to get her a car for her 16th birthday.
Well, you can't drive around here until you're 16 and a half anyway, or get your a real driver's license. So we got her a bike, and soon after, that was in the spring when she turned 16. So probably during that summer when we were gearing up for cyclocross, Victoria starts asking a bunch of questions about, how many girls show up at these races? What's it like racing cyclocross? So the next thing we knew, we were probably getting ready to go out to Kirkland. Was that your first race? Mark, we'll have to pull it up on close results.
Kirkland 2015.
So we signed her up for Kirkland. She came out to Kirkland, probably with flat pedals on that Colnago World Cup.
Yep.
And I think by the middle of that first season, we got her some Crank Brothers pedals and some real shoes. And she did 2 seasons when she was still in high school. And then her 3rd season was last fall out in Minnesota.
What's the scene like in Minnesota? Is it like New England? Is it like New York?
Well, we have like Jingle Cross and Trek Cup. So like obviously those are huge like races because they're like World Cup and everything.
They're World Cups. They're bigger than anything we got around here, right?
Yeah. And those are like super cool right at the beginning. So you kind of start off with like a bang. And then you have the Minnesota cross scene is actually pretty well established. It's just the races are more like NYCROSS races instead of like a Gloucester. But then there is like 1 or 2 like bigger races where people come from like Iowa and Wisconsin, and like all out there and everything. So I think the Minnesota scene is good because like Minnesota has a ton of bike paths. Like it's like the most like bike friendly city is Minneapolis and everything. So there's a ton of like bike riders. So like a lot of people show up, and it's kind of cool because it's like the same people, kind of like the NYCROSS thing, but just probably a little more than NYCROSS. But it's weird because there's a lot more like grass crit type races that I did. But then it was just like not as technical. Like there's not as much sand, or like crazy run-ups, I think, just because there's not as many hills.
Yeah, it's it's like kind of flat, right?
Yeah.
You got to start encouraging people to just make gnarly courses. Do you ever consider putting a race on? Do they put a race on at the college?
No, not the college, but my friend that's on the cycling team, he's like the vice president or something. He's actually making one in his backyard because he has like a bunch of acres.
Oh man, tell him to call Gary Toth.
He's like crazy though. Like he broke his like one of his vertebrae this year, sending it off of a flyover. So that race is going to be a little bit more technical than some of the other ones that we did.
That's spectacular.
And why do I not want flyovers at NYCROSS races?
What? If you choose to send it, you choose to send it. It's not your fault. If it's not the promoter's fault if you fail in sending it.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a good question. Okay, so people get hurt doing this, right? That's the reality.
True, yeah.
You guys ever have a really bad crash?
I've been lucky.
Into a basketball hoop.
Yeah.
besides the basketball hoop, or including the basketball hoop?
Oh,
I've been lucky. I have never broken a bone or.
So we'll knock on wood as we ask that question, and you say no, I've never had a crash.
I think I make up for the whole family on broken bones, so hopefully it stays that way.
I do feel like I encounter you crashing like frequently. I don't know why I think that.
My last crash was not my fault.
That's what they all say.
I mean, it was captured on film. Tim Payne, it was at Wicked Creepy. Tim Payne had actually moved the start the next year. I think he might even refer to it as the Dan Servetas Memorial Start.
So, do you ever think about cycling? Cyclocross is pretty safe, right? At the end of the day, I don't think that it's like particularly risky. But do you ever think about having your kids racing and out on the roads training, and that is probably inherently less safe than playing a high school sport? Is that, I don't know if that's statistically true or not, but I feel like it might be.
probably for me, because I don't really know what I'm doing.
I mean, I don't worry about them too much crashing in a race. I mean, everybody's going to think about, riding on the roads and the dangers there. But I think looking back at the kids' high school sport careers, so far Victoria has done more damage playing lacrosse than racing bikes. So,
except for that basketball hoop.
Well, yeah, except for that.
Or when I broke my nose off.
Well, yeah, I forgot about that. Victoria did break her nose mountain bike racing, so.
Well, that's actually how'd you do that? Let's start with, how did that happen?
We were pre-riding at one of the NYCROSS, and this is my first year mountain biking, so I didn't really know what I was doing, and I would fall every 2 seconds. I'd clip every tree. So then we got to a course that was really flowy, and I'm like, oh, this is my course. So I started going faster than normal, and then came a tree, just clipped it a little bit, and then rubbed my whole face on the ground.
Ooh.
I get up, and the glasses wouldn't fit on my face because my nose is completely sideways.
Whoa!
Fun.
Did you finish the race?
No, this was pre-ride, so I didn't even get to do the race.
Oh, super lame.
Yeah, and then this was kind of a month or something before prom, so that was a little bit of a freak out. I'm like, oh my god, is my nose gonna be touching my cheek at prom? But
was it?
No, they I had to get minor surgery, is how you call it, and they pushed it back. But I mean, I usually crash. If for someone who doesn't fall a lot, that might have been really scary. But mountain biking, I would end the race 50 bruises, so I was kind of used to it.
So that's a good point, right? If you are somebody who is really into building, model train sets, falling off a mountain bike could be a horrible experience. But when you're used to this, I mean, when you're used to trying to send it, there's a logical consequence that sometimes you don't succeed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sending it is very loosely. This was in the course.
Trying to send it, in other words, not crashing into a tree.
Yeah. Some of the trees are really close, so.
Those trees do jump out and get you. So you guys are a super duper bike racing family. Everybody loves it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I wish Heidi was awake, because you can literally hear her cheering on the live feed at Nationals. Are you guys going to go to Nationals this year in Louisville?
I don't know. We have to figure out how Minnesota end will work. Schedule-wise, I don't know how the December Nationals is going to work with finals.
Oh, yeah. Having to study and stuff. Do you do that at college still?
Oh, yes. All the time. Every day.
Do you have a major?
Yeah, I'm going for mechanical engineering.
Whoa. That sounds very hard.
Classic bike racer major.
Yeah, it is. That's true. Are you gonna work for a bike company and design full suspension mountain bikes? Is that your goal?
Who knows?
Tommy, what are you gonna study in college?
Well, my parents are both engineers. My sister's gonna be an engineer. So I'll probably just end up being an engineer as well.
You want to be a lawyer? It's pretty sweet.
I think my least favorite subject is English, so I think that rules that out.
I do have to read to be a lawyer, and that is a hard part. Why is your least favorite subject English? My mom was an English teacher. She would be sad if she knew that your least favorite subject was English.
I don't know. I know, like, it probably started when we had to do a poetry unit, and I had to read a poem out loud, and it was really stupid. And then I was like, oh.
Do you remember the poem?
It was something about a dingo getting on a bus.
That does sound stupid.
Yeah.
Probably like elementary school.
This was 8th grade. And after that, I mean, I don't like writing that much. And I'm taking AP English, and that's just a lot of writing and essays and stuff. I don't know.
So, like, when you're out riding, you're never thinking, like, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate? Like, nothing like that ever goes through your head?
No, not really.
You're never thinking about the rough winds or the the rough winds or the darling buds of May? That doesn't go through your head at all?
No, not really.
You better become an engineer then.
Yeah, probably.
Dan, what was your favorite subject when you were in high school? English?
No. Yeah, probably, like Victoria said, gym.
Gym is sweet. Whoa, hold on, I have an idea. Be a gym teacher.
That sounds cool. Gym teachers are pretty relaxed.
You get to basically do cool sports all day long. You don't have to, like, administer, like, Regents exams, and you get the summers off, so you can be a pro bike racer.
I mean, that's the dream.
There you go. That's your new profession. That's my suggestion. Or be an engineer, be boring, design new full suspension mountain bikes, and work with carbon fiber. Well, who would want to do that? That sounds lame.
We'll swing it by Heidi in the morning.
It's not really the three of you all racing together now because Victoria, you're away at school, like, during cross season. But do you think, or do you, I should ask without a qualification, do you guys feel like you are more inclined to race because you have a family of racers? Do you think that, like, you're sucked in because everybody's just doing it and you can't stop?
I feel like, I don't think it's like my direct family. I think it's more like the cyclocross family. Like, if I were to stop racing, it would be more like, I feel like the family side of it would be okay with it, but like all the people that I race cyclocross with, I kind of miss them, and I don't know, like, I can't leave that side. The family it's different, but I think the main reason for me is like the actual cyclocross family and the atmosphere at NYCROSS races and in New England at those races. Those are like what kind of keeps me coming back every year.
What's your favorite race?
My favorite race probably is either Warwick or Uncle Sam.
Oh, good answers. Those are two good answers.
Yeah.
Dan, what's your favorite race?
I would say Uncle Sam or Bethlehem Cup.
Interesting. Going with the local races.
Yeah, you know, every race course has its unique feature, and I think definitely the being close to home has a lot of advantages. I certainly don't mind going to all the New England, the big races over in New England in the Northeast Series, but you know, the logistics, I guess, as the dad, kind of wears on you after a while. If I had to pick one of those, it would be Warwick, because I think that's kind of the lowest key of the Northeast races, the big one.
Interesting. So your preference is for a lower key event. You like want to be like sort of the chill version of the big race.
Yeah, when you're in a field of 150, 40 plus or 50 plus people, and you know every one of them is as fast or faster than you, and it's going to be a giant log jam halfway around the first lap at the first constriction. That's not a lot of fun.
Fair enough. Victoria, do you have a favorite race? And is it located in the Midwest or is it located in the Northeast?
I would say that Jingle Cross was my favorite race because I just started really training last summer, and I kind of just showed up for the first time, like actually trained. And I beat one of the girls that goes to Killington Mountain School that I thought was gonna crush me. And so I think that was really cool. And then like having all like the professional people there, like basically race with Wout Menard. Like,
I mean, that's sick.
That was a really cool race. And then I really liked in the Northeast, I liked the Supercross race because the first time we did it, it was like a mud fest. So that was kind of fun.
Yep, that was Supercross.
If you had to stop bike racing, what would you go do instead?
I'd probably play lacrosse again. But I'd probably go back to that just because I'm used to it. I mean, it wasn't boring. It was fun, but yeah, it'd be cool to just go back to that.
Do you ever get hit in the head with a lacrosse stick?
Yeah, but it's worse when I get like head-on-head stuff. But like, I mean, that's high school sports, just like concussions and stuff. That's what it's about.
If you had to pick between wearing a bike helmet to play lacrosse or wearing a lacrosse helmet while you were riding your bike, which one would you pick?
I'd probably wear a lacrosse helmet while bike riding so I could like go to a downhill park and just send it and not worry about stuff poking my face.
And Victoria, obviously, at this point, we know that you would probably pick the same given your propensity to interact with trees on the mountain bike course.
Yeah.
What time is it, guys? Don't you? At least one of you has to go to school in the morning, right?
No school.
July, Eric.
It's July. Oh man, wow!
Cross
It's
is coming.
July. Cross is coming. Dan, is there anything you want to talk about? You want to add in a little bit of like information about rock climbing or anything super cool?
That would be awesome, but that's going to take me back several years. It's been a
Mildly
while.
off. Well, actually, you know what? You said something to me that I do want to ask you about. You said something to me one day about how you had been a rock climber, like really seriously, before you got into cycling, and as a result of that, you felt that it made you the worst. Like it's bad for bike riders. You like the skill set of rock climbing and bike riding are entirely different.
Oh yeah.
Remember telling me that?
I did, and so basically, when you're a rock climber, you never push your anaerobic threshold. You're never, you don't even know what VO2 max is because you hear about these super mountaineers who have tremendous VO2 max, but you kind of, take the least amount of effort to get to the base of the cliff, and then when you're on the rock, you're being super conservative with your energy, and you're just never huffing and puffing. That's the big difference. And then you become a bike racer 15 years later after your aerobic capacity is shot, and you have to totally like build all that back up from scratch. So it probably did not help me as a bike racer being a rock climber for about 15 years exclusively. Because before that, I think I had pretty good aerobic capacity. I ran track, and I always used to ride my bike around like Tommy does today. So yeah, it's probably not the best thing to do if you want to be a bike racer as a master's age racer.
So for all the rock climbers out there listening to our podcast, stick with your rock climbing. Don't try to ride bikes. Servetas family, it's been excellent talking to you. Do you guys have social media or similar that if anyone in the world wants to reach out to you, they could? Do you have Twitter or something like that?
I have Instagram, Tommy Servetas, and then we have a NYCROSS Instagram, NYCROSS_CX. There's posting about the series, racers, updates. So give that a follow to stay on top of the NYCROSS series.
Everyone should follow that. That's a great idea. Thank you for pointing that out. Dan, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, they should just like contact you via looking in the phone book. Would that be the way to do it?
Either that or just open up a window and yell out the window, "Hey, yo, Dan."
That's a good way to do it too. Good idea. And Victoria, no, you don't want anyone to contact you, right? That's probably the best way to put it. No. Okay. All right. Great, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Amateur Hour CX. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at mwalling, and Eric pretends he's the show account, which you can follow at Amateur Hour CX on Twitter. Please don't forget to visit our sponsor, Rift, who helped make this show possible. And don't forget to subscribe in your podcast player of choice so you get our next episode in a couple of weeks. Thanks. See you then.
I did. I told you that I put a plant on top of my modem so that it would look nicer, and then you were like, "That's a horrible idea," and I was like, "I don't care, whatever." And then, like a month later, when I watered the water went on the modem too, and then stopped working. What can I say? It looks better this way. My internet doesn't work anymore, though.